Hi guys, welcome back. So I've been waiting for a bit of a break in the weather to test these. We've got the H&M Baracuda 8s here today. We're going to run these through all of the rifles that I've got on the channel. So we're going to use them through the Airmax Katran, we're going to use them through the Anschutz 9015 and the Arms XTI-50. Now interestingly, the picture of the Baracuda 8 on the tin looks, in fact it looks more like a JSB Exact than the picture of the JSB Exact does on its own tin. At this weight, at 8.44 grains, giving you that little picture, it's clearly a dig at JSB. They want some of the market that JSB hold at the moment. Now, in terms of hunter field target and field target in Europe, the Exacts and the derivatives, so the Air Arms Fields, the FXs, the day state versions, they are by far and away the most popular pellet used in competition. Now, the Baracuda FTs, these are incredibly popular in the UK on the bench rest circuit. These actually don't look like that picture. That's a picture of a JSB Exact on the H&N tin. These actually look like a Baracuda FT. Now, if you look up inside the skirt, that's where they differ. Now, this has got a slightly thinner skirt, brings the weight down marginally. So I'm going to put up some nice pictures, some close-ups, so you can see all three of these side by side. I'm hoping that we can get all of them tested this morning. The weather's looking really nice. There's very little wind at the moment. It's going to be red hot later on. Well, they reckon it's going to be the hottest day of the year. So need to get up there, get this done as quick as we can. Hopefully, these are going to be a decent and actually an affordable alternative to the JSBs. Now, these H&Ns are £10.25p a tin in the UK at the moment from some of the suppliers. To get JSB Exacts down to that sort of price, you've got to be buying at least 20 tins. So, yeah, definitely worth looking into. Hopefully, they're going to be reasonable. H&N normally have reasonable quality pellets. It says on their tins, German engineering, not just for cars, although when they fail to stick a label on like that, it doesn't really instill you with confidence, does it? But we will see. I'm going to get pictures up and I'll get everything sorted and I'll see you at the farm. Right then guys, we're here. We're going to start with the Katran. We're at 25 yards, target's down there. Let's see if we can zoom into that. I'm going to aim straight for the centre of the card. Now the Katran itself was already with a short zero set up for JSB heavies, so hopefully it will stay somewhere on the centre line. Hopefully we'll stay on the card. These are the first ones that I've shot through it now, have pulled the barrel through. These CZ barrels and a lot of the hammer forged barrels can often take a few more to come on when you start running a new ammo through them. So most of the others, the Walther and the Anschutz, as we know from previous videos, are particularly unfussy. So they only normally take half a dozen pellets to come on after a clean. The Katran may take a few more. So I'm going to get these shot and we'll see how it goes. It's a gentle breeze running from right to left at the moment, but we're relatively sheltered here and it's getting red hot already. It's quite early. Right then, we're probably going to need to make a little zero change here. At the moment it's zeroed for JSB heavies. Hopefully we'll be somewhere along the centre line. It's entirely possible that it won't be. I'm going to shoot all of them on 10 mag with all the different rifles, just with the gloved hand under the rear end. Okay, so that's gone in high and right. That's actually gone in a good mil dot high and a good mil dot right. So let's just get a couple more through and make sure that wasn't just a bit of a fluke. Okay, second and third ones of those have gone through the same hole, so that's quite an encouraging start. I'm just going to start walking it back down to my little cross in the middle of the card, and then we'll see if we can pick off some of these little targets that are actually on the card. Hopefully by the time we've got this somewhere zeroed, that should have leaded it in fairly well, and then we can actually do some proper groups. Right, I think now I'm just going to move up onto the top left. We're just going to start picking them off now. We're somewhere near a zero and we'll see how it pans out, shall we? May need to just give it a few more clicks down, but at the moment we'll just run this group off as it is. Right, so we're 50 shots in approximately with the Katran. They haven't really started tightening up a great deal. We're probably still about 12 mil maybe across. We'll measure these up properly when we get back and have a look. I think what I'm going to do is just run a few more off into the right hand side of the card off camera quickly, and then we're going to spin round to 45 yards. And what we're going to do is share a card between all three of the rifles for that, and I'll be using the 25 yard aim point out of 45 so we can compare the drifts and the drops. But so far they load quite nicely, but they haven't tightened up just not quite as much as I'd like, to be honest. So I'll carry on a little bit more off camera and we'll come back to them in a bit. Right, the groups haven't tightened up significantly at 25, but I'm now going to spin round to 45. This is what I'm going to use as my aim point. So the red circle is going to be my aim point for 25 yards. So we should see that our groups come in somewhere down here, and depending on what the wind does, we'll then get a bit of drift. At the moment, the wind's swirling around, so they could be anywhere there. We've only maybe got 3 or 4 mile-an-hour gusts, so nothing massive and major to worry about. However, it will affect the groups, but what we need to check is how consistent they are in the wind. Of course, it's all well and good testing in calm conditions, but when you want to use them in the real world, it's really important to know how well they're going to drift, if they're going to drift consistently, and whether or not you can judge them. Okay, almost exactly a mil dot of drop and almost perfectly on my centre line, so that's a good start. That one pulled a little bit more to the left. I felt that wind just drift a little bit, so nothing unusual there, to be honest. Although we haven't got a particularly tight group down there at the moment, the wind is moving around a little bit. Nothing majorly untoward. A little bit of aiming off and they'd see you right, I'm sure. Oh, that one went up a bit high. That was a strange one. So, not incredibly tight group so far. Of course, we're going to have that bit of drift as the wind's moving around a little bit, but I would have hoped probably for tighter, actually. There's a reasonable bit of elevation change there. I don't think these are a particularly good match to this barrel, that's for sure. Right, that'll do for that lot then. I'll collect them cards in. I'm going to get the Anschutz set up now. I'm going to swap the CP onto the Anschutz at the moment. I've got some other scopes that I'm playing with, so I'm moving them all around at the moment, so this is going to go on the Annie for the rest of the test. Hopefully the wind doesn't pick up. It's a few mile-an-hour gusts, nothing too major. I mean, if you was in competition or pest controlling, you should be able to deal with that quite well with a bit of aiming off, but I don't think that they are a particularly good match to this barrel, so hopefully the Anschutz or the Walther barrel in the XTI will be better suited, because I've got quite a few of these to use now, so let's get cracked on. Right, we're on to the 9015. I've just got it on roughly onto the card. I actually ended up shooting the target box. Swapping these mounts over, it's not ideal on all these different Picatinny adapters. However, the wind's actually picking up slightly now. The conditions have deteriorated a little bit, which is a bit frustrating. But we'll see what we can do. I'm going to start up on the top left of the card, bring it onto a 0 quickly, and then see what sort of groups we can shoot. Okay, that's a good start. It's going straight through the little red circle in the middle. Now, because of the way that I load these into the barrel, I'm going to make a bit of a note on how well and how consistently they load, because that will give us a good indication as to the overall size and consistency of the actual swaging or the pressing of these pellets. Right, that's doing really well so far. Right, so far from the ones that I've shot, they all feel pretty consistent loading so far. None have been particularly tight or sort of unusually loose, so that's a really good sign. Already, just these first sort of 15 odd that we've got through it, they're quite a lot more accurate already than they were in the Katran. Right, they're really good actually in this, especially as we have got a little bit of breeze. It's swirling around. I'm just going to pick off a few individual red spots on the card, sort of bench rest style if you like, one shot per target for a minute, and see what we can do. Right, that's pretty encouraging, that is. Knocking them little red diamonds out. I think after this we're going to spin straight around to 45. Okay, they're decent. Right, the Anschutz likes those. I'm going to show you the card quickly, get the GoPro off. Right then, so these are just bringing it onto the target, getting it zeroed. 5 shots, 5 shots, 5 shots. single shot in all of those. That's really quite good. Like I say, we've got a bit of a breeze. You can probably hear it on the camera, a bit of wind noise. I'm going to spin straight round to 45. This is absolutely perfect in the conditions we've got. I mean, if you was indoors, you'd probably be able to knock all of those out. So that's a really encouraging start with those. As we already know, the Anschutz doesn't really take many pellets to lead in. So although primarily I shoot it with JSBs, I pulled the barrel through this morning. So this was straight after a clean barrel. Within 5 or 6 shots, half a dozen shots, we're getting these sort of groups outdoors. When I do my bit, I can knock the centres out of those pretty well. So we'll have a better look at this when we get home. I'm going to spin round to 45 yards now, and I'll go for the top right hand circle on that card. Right, we spun round to 45. All I've done is just adjust the focus distance. Annoyingly, the wind's picking up a little bit, but what can you do when you're shooting outdoors? We need to know exactly how they drift, how consistent they are, and how easy to judge where they're going to go if you're shooting outdoors. So top right on the card, next to the Katran group, I'm going to use the 25-yard aim point in the circle. So we should have probably about the same drift and drop as we've got with the Katran, but hopefully a slightly tighter group, although the wind has picked up a bit. Oh, okay, the two of those are stacked on top of each other. That's pretty good. Nice. Okay, that's the first one that's moved over a little bit. The wind's actually spun round slightly. It's going from left to right a smidgen. I felt the wind move on my arm hairs slightly. Remember, I'm not aiming off. We're letting the wind do its thing with the 25-yard aim point in the red circle. These are definitely much better suited to the Anschutz barrel than the CZ barrel fitted to the Katran. Yeah, pretty good. I'm happy with those. As I can feel the wind twitching around, the pellets are moving just a little bit either way. No weird sketchy behaviour. And that one peeled off a little bit. The wind had moved slightly. So I'll tell you what, first impressions are actually good. They're not doing anything untoward. That's exactly what pellets should do. That's what the groups will look like in this wind. The wind's sort of swirling over a little bit at the moment. Overall, yeah, I'm quite happy with those. So definitely going to use those going forward in this. We've got a few tins to use. So I'm going to get everything set up, get the XTI out now, and we'll go again. Right, okay, we're here. So we're with the XTI now then at 25 yards. This was zeroed up with 8.4 grain exact. So hopefully the actual point of impact will be very similar. We'll get a few off. I'm just going to aim for the middle of the card to start with and see how it goes. Although I've got the bigger scope on, we're still on 10 mag as well. Keep an eye on the little windicator stick here. The wind's moving about a little bit. Unfortunately, the conditions have got marginally worse as the test's gone on, but we can't do a lot about that. Oh, okay. That's taken that centre of that out, so that's hopefully. Let's just have another go and see if I can pick a few more off. Could probably do with giving it a little click to the right, but I think for the moment, let's just pick another one off and then I'll do some groups. Okay, that one moved up a little bit. Don't forget, the barrel's just been cleaned, so we don't have a huge amount of data on this because it's quite new, but it certainly looks as if it doesn't take too long to lead in, so may just be moving around. Okay, so the two of those have gone in the same place, so chances are there's a little bit of movement as they're leading into the barrel. It's getting really hot as well today. It's supposed to be the hottest day of the year so far. Right, so first proper 5-shot group, that's pretty tight. I'm finding actually with this sunlight behind me, I need a little bit more. Oh, it's not too bad. The ocular on this really could do with a little bit of a shield on here because I'm getting a little bit of flare up on here and I actually can't see the centre dot. It's a very fine centre dot on here. I can't see it very easily on that red little diamond in the card. Right, we're going to spin round to 45 yards now. We're going to go onto the centre circle on the card, then we can compare the drifts and the drops directly, but annoyingly the wind has got up a little bit more. Right, 45 yards, same card as before. You can see the sun's come around a little bit. Keep an eye on the wind indicator stick. GoPro's on down the end there. Let's see how we can do. Now actually I can see the centre dot of my reticle better on this target. I've got the little red circle. You can see it a bit better now. The wind feels like it's died off fairly well for the moment, but it's certainly swirling around a bit more in the middle. Right, so the second and third ones of those have gone through the same hole. Right, so when that wind's consistent, they're literally going through the same holes, so pretty impressive so far. Right, probably call this last one. Okay, so there's 3 little groups there. Sort of no wind, a little bit of wind, and when the wind picks up, so that's pretty encouraging actually. Nothing untoward with any of them. The Katran wasn't quite as good, but it looks as if the Anschutz and the XTI are probably neck and neck really. We'll get these cards home later on, we'll have a good look over them. Overall so far though, I'm quite happy with those through the 2 target rifles. Katran, I probably won't use them again through that, but certainly through these I'm going to do a little bit more testing. I think when we get some calm conditions we'll use them again in this, and we'll adjust the stripper and see if we can actually tighten up them groups, or whether they get worse even by adjusting the air stripper. So I think, are they as good as a JSB? Well, we'll look at the cards, we'll look at some of my other results that I've shot with the other rifles as well with JSBs, and we'll see whether they are as good. But I tell you what, for a first go with these, quite happy. They've definitely got some potential, so I'll see you at home in a bit. Right then guys, we're back. So the results then, first up was the Katran. Now that didn't group quite as well as I'd hoped for. The little CZ barrels can be somewhat fussy, and of course, as with everything in air guns, there's always some barrel dependency. So just because my Katran doesn't shoot them doesn't mean that yours won't be absolutely phenomenal with them. Now they're certainly not bad, don't get me wrong, but generally if you're paying £10 plus a tin, I'd want slightly better than that. So overall, I'm not really disappointed. Got 2 other rifles that are shooting them very well, and it's just par for the course. Some barrels are better than others with different batches of pellets, so really not too upset about it. I mean, picking off a few individual diamonds, I did pretty well when I was actually aiming off, but generally the group sizes, they're all still covered by a 5p. I think this was probably, these 2 were the largest ones here actually, so they're just covered by 5p. So overall not too bad. It would be perfectly fine for pest control at short range, so overall not too upset, to be honest. Right, 9015, so we did a few less with these. I had to run a few more through the Katran. I was just basically hoping that they would tighten up, which they didn't. So 9015, most of these groups are down in the sort of 8-9 mil outside edge. I mean, that's a centimetre there. Again, these cards are getting torn up a little bit. The actual groups themselves are just marginally smaller. And when I started actually aiming off, basically took out all of those diamonds there. So 25 yards, I was really happy with those. They came on, they didn't take really any time to lead in, sort of half a dozen, and they were on song. So all of those are well under a 5p, as you'd expect. So perfectly happy with those at 25. Now the XTI and the 9015, pretty much identical group sizes. Now by this time, when I was trying to aim off for these, the sun coming right in the back of the scope, and it's actually really hard to see the super fine target dot on the dark red of the diamond. So the first couple are all right, really quite close. I think the actual group sizes were marginally smaller with the XTI than the 9015, but I did slightly better when I was actually aiming off with the 9015. So we'll call it evens on those, which to be fair, they've both got high-end barrels in, Anschutz barrel, Walther barrel. What do you expect? Decent German ammo. Overall, quite happy really. They were both nice to shoot. They loaded consistently and smoothly. And in the 9015, obviously because I'm thumbing them into the actual back of the barrel itself, there was none that were overly tight or none that were overly loose. So considering we're using these straight from the tin, there was no prep or anything like that. Overall, pretty happy with those. Now when we get onto the 45s, unfortunately the weather and the wind started deteriorating as we were going through. So Katran group at the top left, this was pretty scattered actually. It's all of this elevation change that I don't really like. This makes it very hard to judge where they're going. Whereas when you've got the 9015 here, apart from this one up here, there's basically a centimetre of elevation change between the group. Of course, you've got the drift with the wind. XTI, about the same really overall. We both managed to get one top right on both of those. So wind was swirling around. Overall, really, I'm not too worried. I think they're pretty good, to be honest. And what I do want to show you, look, we've got a 5p there. So that was the centre line. If you can get a judge of that wind, you can feel it on your face, you can feel it in your hair, whatever. You've only got to aim off a 5p and you're back on your target again. So either way of your centre line, 5p either way. bit of aiming off at 45 yards. Unless you've got an absolutely still calm day, you're never going to get a group that's this size unless you're incredibly lucky. So the wind always is doing its thing. I wasn't aiming off for these. I wanted to actually monitor what the wind was doing. It's important to learn what the wind's doing. When you feel that wind, you can then go, right, I need to aim off X amount. So it's very, very important to actually test in the wind. Overall, I was really quite happy. I definitely think going forward, we're going to do some more testing. We're going to do some more involved testing with the XTI going forward. The next time we get a sort of decent day, we may well start weighing some of these up, see what happens if we size some, and we've also then got the air stripper to play with as well. So definitely want to do a little bit more with these. I've got tons of new pellets that have arrived for the XTI, so we can start on some meaningful testing with that, because up until now we've only really used what we've had. So I'm going to show you how I do all my pellet prep, or lack of in some cases when you find a decent batch. So quite a lot to go forward. Also got a few more new scopes as well. So I mentioned in the video that I've been swapping scopes about. There's some cool new stuff that I've got here. One that's ours for the channel that I've bought, and we've been given another one to test going forward and have a play with, something that may well interest you. Something completely unusual that I've never really tried before. So hopefully again in the next couple of weeks we can get that all on film as well. So overall, are the JSBs better than the H&Ns? Well, given that these have only just arrived, the performance that I've got is pretty good. In the wind that we had today, a decent batch of JSBs may well have just edged it. However, the first ones that we've tried, I'm really quite happy with those. I'm definitely going to get some more of those. They're quite thin on the ground at the moment. Everyone's snapping them up. I didn't rush to go and get some of the early batches of these actually, because if they did anything like QIS did, they were really, really fantastic to start with, and then the quality dropped off and the price shot up. But given that these ones can be bought for £10 and 25p for one individual tin, you have to buy probably 20 tins of exacts to get them into that sort of price range. So definitely worth a try, guys. Again, not every barrel is going to like them, but at that sort of price, it's definitely worth a little play with. So I think that'll do it for this one, and I will catch you in the next one.